Hello and welcome, everyone. Today's episode is all about the value of lifelong learning. Whether you're in school, in your career, or even retired, learning doesn't have to stop, and the benefits are incredible.
That's right, Jennifer. Lifelong learning is more than just picking up new skills, it's about staying curious and open-minded. In this episode, we'll discuss why it's so important to keep learning and how it can positively impact every part of our lives. And for all of you listening, this podcast is here to help you improve your English along the way. Not only will you pick up vocabulary and expressions related to lifelong learning, but you'll also gain confidence in listening and understanding everyday conversations. Exactly by the end of today's episode, you'll know the different types of lifelong learning, practical ways to stay engaged in learning at any stage of life, and the benefits it brings both personally and professionally. Ready to dive in?
Let's get started. So, Daniel, how would you describe lifelong learning to someone who's new to the idea?
Good question, Jennifer. Lifelong learning is essentially the continuous pursuit of knowledge. It goes beyond formal education, meaning it doesn't have to be in a classroom setting. It's about learning things that interest you, whether that's a new language, skill, or even just exploring a hobby.
I like that perspective. Lifelong learning is about being open to new ideas and keeping that sense of curiosity alive. And you're right, it doesn't always need to be formal. You can learn from books, online courses, or even through conversations.
Exactly. For instance, someone might take up gardening or learn to cook a new dish. These are all forms of learning, and they add value to life in ways we might not immediately see. It's about growth, both intellectually and personally.
And for English learners listening today, lifelong learning applies directly to your journey in mastering a new language. Learning never stops.
So, Jennifer, let's talk about why lifelong learning is so important. What's your take?
Well, one major reason is that it keeps our minds active. Lifelong learning stimulates the brain and can even help prevent cognitive decline as we age. Studies have shown that people who keep learning throughout their lives tend to have sharper minds.
Yes, and it's not just about mental benefits. Lifelong learning also builds resilience. When you're constantly learning, you're more adaptable and open to change because you're used to stepping out of your comfort zone.
That's such a good point. It also gives a sense of purpose and achievement. When you set goals and achieve them, no matter how small, it boosts your confidence and keeps you motivated.
And let's not forget the social benefits. Learning something new often connects you with people who have similar interests, which can build friendships and expand your network.
Exactly. So, lifelong learning enriches our minds, improves our adaptability, and can even help us feel more connected to others. All right, Daniel, what are some practical ways people can make lifelong learning a regular part of their lives?
There are so many ways. One of the simplest is to read regularly. Whether it's books, articles, or listening to audiobooks, reading is a great way to expose yourself to new ideas and knowledge.
Yes, and with technology, there are also countless online courses and tutorials available, many of which are free. You can learn almost anything online today, everything from photography to coding, or even baking.
Absolutely, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Just dedicating 15 to 30 minutes a day to something you're curious about can make a big difference over time.
I agree. Podcasts, like this one, are another great way. You can listen and learn while doing other things, like exercising or commuting. Learning doesn't have to interrupt your day. It can blend into it.
And for our English learners, setting daily or weekly goals, like practicing vocabulary or listening to a new podcast episode, is a practical way to keep improving. Jennifer, let's talk about the obstacles people face when trying to make lifelong learning a habit. What do you think holds people back?
Time is a big one, definitely. A lot of people feel they're too busy to dedicate time to learning. But I think it's about prioritizing even small moments for it. Like we said, just 15 minutes can be powerful.
Yes, and motivation can also be a challenge. Sometimes people don't know where to start or lose interest. My advice is to choose something that truly excites you. Learning is easier when it's something you're genuinely interested in.
That's so true. And I think another obstacle is fear of failure or feeling too old to start something new. But remember, lifelong learning is about the journey, not perfection. It's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely, and mistakes are often the best teachers. Just having a growth mindset can help overcome many of these obstacles.
Yes, exactly. Being patient with yourself and enjoying the learning process can make a huge difference.
Daniel, what are some ways to incorporate lifelong learning into our daily lives without making it feel like a chore? Good question, Jennifer. I'd say curiosity is key. Approach your day with a learning mindset to ask questions, look up things you're curious about, or try to find small challenges that make you think.
Great point. Also, creating habits like keeping a journal or setting small goals can make a difference. Writing down what you learned each day or setting a goal for the week makes it easier to see progress.
And you don't have to learn alone. Joining a group or community focused on your interest, like a book club or language exchange, can make learning more engaging and social.
Absolutely. And sharing what you learn with friends or family can also reinforce your knowledge and make learning more fun.
Lifelong learning doesn't have to be formal or intensive. It's about keeping your mind open and being curious.
Danielle, curiosity seems like a huge part of lifelong learning, doesn't it? I mean, without curiosity, learning would feel forced. Do you think curiosity is something people can cultivate, or do you think it's more of a natural trait?
I'd say it's a bit of both, Jennifer. Some people naturally have a curious disposition, but I truly believe anyone can build their curiosity. It's about training yourself to wonder more, to ask questions, and to dig a bit deeper. Sometimes we lose our curiosity because we're too focused on routine or practicality, but there's so much power in pausing to explore new ideas, even if it feels a bit out of our comfort zone.
That's such a good point, Daniel. And I think cultivating curiosity starts with simple things, like asking why more often or challenging yourself to learn something about a topic you wouldn't normally explore. It could be as small as reading an article about a field you know nothing about, or as big as taking up a new hobby. The more we allow ourselves to be curious, the more natural it becomes.
Yes, exactly. Curiosity really is like a muscle. It grows stronger the more we use it. And there's a sense of joy that comes with curiosity. It's not just about learning for the sake of knowledge. It's about seeing the world with fresh eyes, finding little wonders in everyday things. When you approach life with a curious mindset, even ordinary moments can feel exciting and full of potential.
I couldn't agree more. It's like finding a spark in the mundane. And curiosity makes learning less intimidating. If we're curious, we're more likely to approach new information with an open mind, which is especially helpful for English learners listening in. Curiosity can drive them to explore different ways of learning English, whether through movies, music, or even this podcast.
Absolutely, curiosity opens doors to new perspectives, and with lifelong learning, it turns every moment into an opportunity to grow. When we're curious, we're constantly reminded that there's always more to discover, more to understand. And that makes the learning journey much more fulfilling.
Daniel, how do you think lifelong learning shapes us as individuals, beyond just the knowledge we gain? I feel like it goes much deeper than just knowing more things.
You're right, Jennifer. Lifelong learning impacts who we are, our outlook, and our confidence. When we dedicate ourselves to learning, we're investing in self-improvement, and that makes us more resilient and adaptable. I think it really builds character, giving us a sense of purpose and accomplishment. And it goes beyond just filling our minds with facts. It changes the way we approach life, making us more patient, more open to different viewpoints.
Exactly, Daniel. And lifelong learning keeps us humble. No matter how much we know, there's always more out there, and I think that humbles us. It teaches us that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Each new thing we learn adds a new layer to our understanding, and that's deeply enriching.
Yes, humility is a big part of it, and with that humility comes empathy. The more we learn, the more we can understand others' experiences, their struggles, and perspectives. It makes us better listeners, better friends, and better communicators. And for our English learners, it's a reminder that learning is a journey. It's okay to make mistakes, to not be perfect. Every step forward is a step toward growth.
I love that, Daniel. Lifelong learning also keeps us flexible, which is so valuable in today's fast-changing world. When we're committed to learning, we're ready to adapt, whether it's new technology, a career change, or a different culture. And flexibility helps us feel less overwhelmed by change because we know we can handle it.
Exactly, Jennifer. It's like giving ourselves a lifelong toolkit to face whatever comes our way. And with every new thing we learn, we're adding a new tool, a new skill that makes us more prepared and confident. Lifelong learning gives us a sense of self-worth and reminds us that we're always capable of growing, no matter our age or stage in life.
Daniel, I think a lot of people get inspired to start lifelong learning, but keeping up the habit can be challenging. Do you have any thoughts on where someone could begin or ways to make learning part of their daily routine?
That's a great question, Jennifer. I'd say starting small is key. People sometimes set big goals, like reading a book a week, but it can feel overwhelming. A good first step is just setting aside 10 minutes a day to read something, watch a video, or even learn a new word. It's about building the habit rather than aiming for big accomplishments right away. Those 10 minutes can make a huge difference over time.
Absolutely, Daniel. I love the idea of starting with manageable goals. I think another way to stay consistent is to choose topics you're genuinely interested in. If learning feels like a chore, it's hard to stick with it. But if you're curious about the subject, it becomes something you look forward to. And consistency doesn't mean being rigid. You can mix things up with different resources, like articles, podcasts, or online courses.
Yes, variety really helps. It's easy to lose motivation if we only use one type of learning resource. I think another tip is to involve friends or family. When we share what we're learning with others, it makes it more fun and engaging. Plus, explaining something to someone else helps us understand it better. So, if any of our listeners are practicing English, they can try sharing new phrases with a friend or even teaching them. It's a great way to reinforce what they're learning.
Exactly, Daniel. And I think setting goals can also keep us motivated. They don't have to be huge, just something like learning 5 new phrases by the end of the week or listening to an English podcast every day for a month. Small goals give us a sense of progress and accomplishment, which makes us more likely to keep going. And even when we're busy, these small steps still add up over time.
Very true, Jennifer. Consistency builds confidence, and that's such an important part of learning. When we see small improvements, it encourages us to keep moving forward. And it's a reminder that learning isn't about reaching a finish line, it's about enjoying the process. For English learners, this can be a reminder that every bit of practice, no matter how small, contributes to their progress.
Daniel, I think one common challenge people face with lifelong learning is dealing with setbacks. Sometimes we might feel like we're not improving or that it's just too hard to keep going. Do you have any tips on how to manage those tough moments?
That's a very real struggle, Jennifer. I think one of the best things to do when facing setbacks is to remind ourselves why we started in the first place. Keeping that original motivation in mind can be powerful. Also, setbacks don't mean we're failing, they're just part of the learning process. Even when it feels like we're stuck, we're still learning something valuable, even if it's just how to approach things differently.
That's a helpful perspective, Daniel. Setbacks can feel discouraging, but when we shift our view to see them as part of the journey, they become easier to handle. And sometimes, taking a short break and coming back with a fresh mind can make a huge difference. For example, if you're learning English and feeling frustrated with speaking, taking a day to focus on listening might help you return with more energy and confidence.
Yes, and I think patience is also important. Progress isn't always obvious. Sometimes we're learning more than we realize. It's like planting a tree. You don't see it grow every day, but over time, you can look back and notice the big difference. And English learners especially might not feel their progress daily, but over a few months, those little improvements add up significantly.
Exactly, Daniel. And a positive attitude can also make a difference. If we view each challenge as a new opportunity to grow, it can motivate us to keep learning. It might help to even write down each small success or improvement. That way, during tougher days, we can look back and see how far we've come. It reminds us that progress is real, even if it's sometimes invisible.
That's a great idea, Jennifer. Celebrating small wins can keep us going. Lifelong learning is a long journey, so every little achievement matters. For anyone working on English skills, even just recognizing that they understand more words than last month is a win. It's all about seeing the positives in the process.
Daniel, another challenge people face in lifelong learning is setting realistic goals. Sometimes it's easy to feel overwhelmed by wanting to achieve too much too quickly. What's your advice on setting achievable goals?
Great question, Jennifer. I'd say start small. When we set big goals, they can feel inspiring at first, but they also carry a lot of pressure. For example, instead of saying I'll become fluent in English in 6 months, it might be better to set a smaller, more specific goal, like I'll learn 5 new words every week. These small goals are more manageable and allow us to celebrate progress along the way.
Exactly, Daniel. It's amazing how small goals can build up over time. And when we set goals that are easy to measure, we can clearly see when we're making progress. It can be rewarding to track these achievements, like finishing a chapter in a book or having a short conversation in English without feeling too nervous.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Learning is a marathon, not a sprint. By pacing ourselves and focusing on achievable goals, we're more likely to stick with it. And I think it's important to adjust our goals as we go along. Sometimes we need to slow down, and that's okay. The goal is to keep moving forward, even if it's at our own pace.
That's such a practical approach, Daniel. Lifelong learning is something we'll always be working on, so there's no need to rush. For anyone learning English, taking it step by step and recognizing every small success can keep the motivation high. And over time, those small wins turn into big accomplishments.
Couldn't agree more, Jennifer, and celebrating each milestone, no matter how small, can turn the process into a positive experience. Lifelong learning is about enjoying the journey as much as reaching the destination.
Daniel, I think curiosity plays a huge role in lifelong learning. When we're curious, learning doesn't feel like a task, it feels like an adventure. What's your take on how curiosity impacts learning?
Jennifer, that's such a great point. Curiosity is like the spark that keeps us going. When we're curious, we naturally seek answers and dive into new subjects, even if they're challenging. For instance, a lot of people feel intimidated by complex topics like science or history. But if they start with a small, curious question like, how does a plane fly? They're more likely to dig deeper and learn more.
I love that example, Daniel. Curiosity makes learning feel purposeful. If we stay curious, we're always finding something new that excites us. For English learners, it could be as simple as wondering, how would a native speaker say this? Or what does that phrase really mean when we ask questions? It's like opening a door to more knowledge.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And when we're genuinely curious, we're more likely to remember what we learn because it means something to us personally. Lifelong learning isn't just about information, it's about expanding our view of the world. Each new thing we learn helps us connect the dots in other areas of life.
That's true, Daniel. It's amazing how being curious can lead us to discover things we never expected. And for language learning, that curiosity keeps us motivated as there's always something new to learn or understand.
Exactly, Jennifer. Curiosity is a powerful tool. It turns learning into a journey, and every new question we ask opens up another path. Lifelong learners are always on an adventure. They're never really finished learning, and that's the beauty of it.
Daniel, have you noticed that having personal learning goals can make a big difference in staying motivated with lifelong learning? For example, having small milestones gives us something to look forward to and a sense of accomplishment along the way.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Without a clear goal, it's easy to lose focus or get overwhelmed by everything there is to learn. For English learners, setting realistic, achievable goals like learning 5 new words a day or mastering 1 new phrase a week can help them feel progress, even in small steps. This sense of growth keeps the journey satisfying.
Exactly, and these goals don't have to be too rigid. They can be flexible enough to adjust as we go. Setting goals could also mean aiming to have a conversation with a native speaker once a month, or maybe understanding a short English podcast by the end of the year. The key is to keep it achievable and personal.
I agree, personal goals can be about anything that excites you. And as you mentioned, Jennifer, being flexible is important. Sometimes goals can change, or you may discover new interests that take you in a different direction. Lifelong learning is a journey, and it's okay if the path shifts from time to time.
Right, Daniel, it's all about moving forward, however slowly or quickly that may be. And when we see progress, it boosts our confidence to continue learning. That's what makes setting goals so powerful. They keep us on track and give us those small wins to celebrate along the way.
Well said, Jennifer. Each goal we reach builds a foundation for the next one, creating a steady rhythm of learning. Lifelong learning isn't a race, it's more about staying engaged with the world and giving ourselves permission to grow at our own pace.
Daniel, another essential part of lifelong learning is understanding that mistakes are part of the process. Sometimes learners can feel discouraged if they make errors, but I think mistakes are valuable lessons in disguise. How do you view mistakes when it comes to learning?
I'm with you, Jennifer. Mistakes are actually a big part of growth. Each mistake is a chance to learn something we didn't know before. For English learners, making a grammar or pronunciation error might feel embarrassing at first, but it's through those errors that real improvement happens.
Exactly, Daniel. When we view mistakes as learning tools rather than setbacks, we can approach learning with more courage and less fear. It's normal to make errors, everyone does. The difference is how we respond to them. Do we let them stop us, or do we let them guide us forward?
That's so true. I think the key is to embrace a mindset where mistakes are simply part of the journey. They show us where we can improve, and honestly, the more mistakes we make, the faster we learn because we're constantly adjusting and refining our understanding.
Right, Daniel. Lifelong learning requires us to be patient and forgiving with ourselves. Each mistake becomes a stepping stone, showing us what to focus on next. If we accept mistakes as a natural part of learning, they'll stop feeling like obstacles and start feeling like opportunities.
Perfectly put, Jennifer. Lifelong learning isn't about perfection, it's about progress. If we can look at mistakes positively, we'll stay motivated and enjoy the process so much more.
Daniel, I think it's important to talk about how different learning methods can help us with lifelong learning. Everyone has their own style, and what works for one person may not work for another. What have you found effective in your own learning journey?
I couldn't agree more, Jennifer. For me, a mix of different methods has been really helpful. Sometimes I prefer visual learning, like watching educational videos or infographics. Other times, I find that listening to podcasts or audiobooks helps reinforce concepts. Trying different methods keeps learning fresh and engaging.
That's a great point. I think variety can help keep us motivated. If someone is feeling stuck with traditional study methods, exploring something new can reignite that passion for learning. For example, learning through music or engaging in language exchange conversations can make the process more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Plus, we learn differently depending on the subject. For example, when I'm picking up a new language, interactive apps and conversation practice have proven more effective than just reading textbooks. It's all about finding the right tools that match our learning style.
Exactly, and experimenting with different resources, like joining online courses, attending workshops, or participating in local community events, can really enhance the learning experience. It's all about being open to new experiences and adapting along the way.
Well said, Jennifer. Lifelong learning thrives on curiosity and exploration. The more we try different methods, the better we understand our preferences and what truly resonates with us. That understanding can lead to more effective learning down the line.
Daniel, I believe curiosity is one of the most powerful drivers of lifelong learning. When we're genuinely curious about something, we're more likely to explore it deeply. How do you think curiosity impacts the learning process?
I completely agree. Jennifer, curiosity opens up so many doors. It pushes us to ask questions and seek answers. When we approach learning with a curious mindset, it becomes less of a chore and more of an adventure. For instance, if I read about a new topic, my curiosity often leads me to delve into related subjects.
Exactly. Curiosity fuels our desire to learn more. It encourages us to look beyond the surface and understand the why behind things. When we are curious, we tend to remember information better because we're personally invested in it.
That's a great point. It's like when you learn a language and you're genuinely interested in the culture behind it. That curiosity can motivate you to practice speaking and understanding it in real contexts, making it much more meaningful.
Absolutely, and curiosity doesn't just help with motivation. It also promotes creativity. When we're curious, we're more likely to think outside the box and come up with innovative solutions. Lifelong learners are often those who never stop asking questions and seeking knowledge.
Well said, Jennifer. I think fostering curiosity is crucial for everyone. Whether it's through reading, asking questions, or exploring new hobbies, it keeps the learning process dynamic and fulfilling. The more we allow our curiosity to guide us, the more we enrich our lives.
Daniel, setting goals can really enhance the lifelong learning process. When we have clear goals, it gives us direction and helps us stay motivated. How do you approach goal setting in your learning journey?
I totally agree, Jennifer. I find that setting both short-term and long-term goals works best for me. Short-term goals keep me focused on immediate tasks, while long-term goals help me maintain perspective on what I want to achieve overall. For example, I might aim to read one book a month, but my long-term goal is to become fluent in a new language within a year.
That's a fantastic approach. Short-term goals can provide those little wins that keep us motivated. I also think it's essential to make our goals specific and measurable. Instead of saying, I want to learn more about history, we could say, I will read 3 history books by the end of the month.
Absolutely. Making goals measurable gives us a way to track our progress. It can also help us identify when we need to adjust our strategies. If I realize I'm not reaching my goal of finishing a book each month, I might change my reading schedule or choose shorter books.
Exactly, and it's important to celebrate our achievements, no matter how small. Recognizing our progress can keep our spirits high and reinforce the habit of lifelong learning. For example, after finishing a book, I often reward myself with a small treat or a day off from studying.
Great idea. Celebrating achievements helps us associate positive feelings with our learning journey. It makes the process more enjoyable and encourages us to keep pushing forward. Setting goals gives us a sense of purpose, and achieving them can be incredibly fulfilling.
Daniel, technology has really transformed the way we learn. There are so many resources available online that can aid our lifelong learning. What are some of your favorite tech tools for learning?
I think one of the best tools is online courses. Platforms like Coursera or Udemy offer a wide range of subjects. You can learn at your own pace and often for free or at a low cost. For example, I recently took a course on digital marketing, which has really helped me understand that field better.
Those platforms are excellent. I also love using language learning apps like Duolingo or Babbel. They turn learning into a game, which makes it fun and engaging. Plus, they allow you to practice every day in bite-sized lessons, which fits into busy schedules.
Exactly, and I think podcasts and audiobooks are also fantastic resources. They allow us to learn while we're doing other activities, like commuting or exercising. I often listen to educational podcasts while I'm working out, which helps me maximize my time.
That's a smart strategy. I've found that watching educational YouTube channels can also be beneficial. Visual learning can enhance understanding, especially for complex topics. Plus, you can pause and replay sections if you need to absorb more information.
Definitely, it's all about finding the right mix of resources that work for you. Technology makes learning more accessible than ever. We can connect with experts from around the world and access information instantly. It's a game changer for lifelong learners.
Daniel, I believe having a support system is crucial for lifelong learning. Surrounding ourselves with like-minded individuals can really boost our motivation. What's your take on building a learning community?
I couldn't agree more. Jennifer, joining study groups or online forums allows us to share ideas and resources. When I joined a book club last year, it really enriched my reading experience. Discussing the books with others helped me see different perspectives I might have missed.
That's a great example. I also think social media can be useful for finding communities. There are many groups dedicated to specific subjects or skills. It's a fantastic way to connect with people who have similar interests and to stay accountable.
Absolutely. Platforms like Facebook or Reddit have communities for almost any topic. Engaging with others can also provide opportunities for collaborative learning. For instance, if someone is working on a project, they might seek feedback or suggestions, which can be invaluable.
And let's not forget about attending workshops or seminars. These events are excellent for networking and meeting people who are passionate about learning. Plus, the interactions can lead to new friendships and collaborations that further enrich our learning journeys.
Definitely, being part of a community not only motivates us but also helps us feel less isolated in our learning. Sharing successes and challenges with others can make the experience more enjoyable and rewarding.
Let's talk about setting learning goals. Daniel, I think having clear goals is essential for making progress. What approach do you take when it comes to setting your learning objectives?
I usually follow the SMART criteria, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For instance, instead of saying, I want to learn French, I might say, I want to complete one chapter of my French textbook each week. This makes it easier to track my progress.
That's a solid method. I find that writing down my goals helps keep me accountable. It's one thing to think about them, but putting them on paper makes them feel more real. I also like to set short-term and long-term goals to give myself a roadmap.
Absolutely. Short-term goals can provide quick wins and keep you motivated. For example, aiming to learn 5 new vocabulary words every day can lead to significant progress over time. Long-term goals, like mastering a language or completing a degree, give you something to work towards.
And I think it's also important to revisit and adjust our goals regularly. Sometimes life gets in the way, and we need to be flexible. If a goal becomes unrealistic, it's okay to modify it to fit our current circumstances.
Very true. Flexibility is key. Life can be unpredictable, and our priorities may change. The important thing is to keep learning, no matter how we adjust our goals. It's all about progress, not perfection.
Daniel, let's talk about the importance of embracing mistakes in our learning journeys. I believe that making mistakes is often where the most valuable lessons come from. What are your thoughts on this?
I completely agree. Jennifer, mistakes are not failures. They're stepping stones to improvement. I remember when I started learning to code. I made so many errors, but each one taught me something new. Instead of feeling discouraged, I learned to see them as part of the process.
That's a great perspective. I think a lot of people fear making mistakes, especially when learning a new language. But every mispronunciation or grammatical error is a chance to grow. It's essential to approach learning with a mindset that welcomes challenges.
Exactly. When I was learning Spanish, I often misused verbs, and while it was embarrassing at first, my friends encouraged me to keep speaking. They would correct me gently, and I found that the more I practiced, the more confident I became.
Such a positive approach. I also think creating a supportive environment can help reduce the fear of making mistakes. Whether it's through friends, family, or online communities, encouragement can make a huge difference in how we view our learning challenges.
Definitely, being part of a supportive community allows us to share our experiences and learn from each other. Celebrating each other's mistakes as learning moments helps build confidence and makes the learning process enjoyable.
Now, let's discuss how to integrate learning into our daily routines. I believe that making learning a habit is crucial for continuous improvement. What strategies do you use, Daniel?
I like to incorporate small learning activities throughout my day. For example, I listen to language podcasts during my commute. It allows me to practice listening skills while I'm doing something else. I find that even short bursts of learning can be effective.
That's a smart approach. I also try to make use of spare moments, like when I'm waiting in line or during breaks. I might review vocabulary on an app or read a short article. It's amazing how those little pockets of time can add up.
Absolutely. Another method I use is to label items around my house with their names in the language I'm learning. It's a visual reminder that keeps the language present in my daily life. Plus, it turns my home into a mini learning environment.
I love that idea. It's like immersing yourself in the language without having to go anywhere. I also set aside specific times each week dedicated to focused study, where I can dive deeper into grammar or writing skills without distractions.
Setting aside dedicated study time is vital. It creates a routine and helps reinforce what we've learned. And don't forget to reward yourself for those efforts, even if it's just taking a moment to appreciate your progress.
Let's shift our focus to setting realistic goals for our learning journeys. I think having clear, achievable goals can keep us motivated. How do you approach goal setting, Daniel?
I agree, Jennifer. I like to break down my learning objectives into smaller, manageable tasks. For instance, instead of just saying I want to improve my speaking skills, I might set a goal to have a 5-minute conversation in English each week. It makes the goal feel more attainable.
That's a smart way to do it. I also set both short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goals give me quick wins, while long-term goals keep me focused on the bigger picture. For example, I aim to read one book in English every month, which helps with my vocabulary and comprehension.
Exactly. Having a mix of goals keeps things interesting. I also track my progress, which is motivating. I often reflect on what I've accomplished each week, and it encourages me to keep pushing forward.
Tracking progress is a great idea. It's like having a visual representation of our efforts. I also like to share my goals with friends or study partners. It creates a sense of accountability, and they can help cheer me on.
Absolutely, sharing goals can lead to valuable discussions and even collaboration on projects. It creates a community of learners who can support each other in achieving their individual and collective goals.
Now, let's talk about the different resources available for learning. There's such a variety out there, from online courses to books. What types of resources do you find most helpful, Daniel?
I find that a mix of resources works best for me. Online platforms like language apps offer structured lessons, but I also enjoy using YouTube for immersive content. Watching videos allows me to see how language is used in context, which really enhances my understanding.
That's a great approach. I love podcasts for the same reason. They're perfect for practicing listening skills, and you can listen while doing other activities. I also enjoy using social media to follow accounts that focus on language learning. It keeps things fresh and engaging.
Exactly, and don't forget about traditional books and materials. I often refer to grammar books when I want to dive deeper into a specific topic. They provide clear explanations and exercises that can reinforce what I learn elsewhere.
Right, it's all about finding the right balance. I also appreciate language exchange platforms. They connect you with native speakers, allowing for real conversations, which is invaluable for building confidence and fluency.
Those exchanges are fantastic. They provide practical experience and cultural insights, which textbooks often lack. Engaging with real people makes learning feel more relevant and enjoyable.
Staying motivated can be challenging, especially when progress feels slow. What strategies do you use to keep your motivation high, Daniel?
I think celebrating small wins is crucial. Every time I reach a milestone, like finishing a book or having a successful conversation, I take a moment to acknowledge that achievement. It keeps my spirits up and reminds me how far I've come.
That's a great idea. I also like to change things up if I feel my motivation dipping. Whether it's switching to a new podcast, trying a different app, or exploring a new topic, variety can reignite that spark for learning.
Absolutely. Variety is essential. I also connect with other learners to share experiences. Hearing about their journeys and successes can be incredibly motivating. It creates a sense of community and reminds me that I'm not alone in this process.
Connecting with others is powerful. I often join online groups where we share tips and challenges. It feels good to support each other and exchange ideas. Plus, it's a great way to meet like-minded individuals who share the same goals.
Exactly, building a support network makes a huge difference. It's about creating an environment where we can all thrive. By surrounding ourselves with positive influences, we're more likely to stay engaged and motivated.
Setting goals is another vital part of the learning process. How do you approach goal setting, Daniel?
I believe in setting both short-term and long-term goals. For instance, a short-term goal could be to learn a specific set of vocabulary words each week, while a long-term goal might be to have a 10-minute conversation in English without switching to my native language. This way, I stay focused and can measure my progress.
That's a smart approach. I also think it's important to make goals achievable. When goals are realistic, it prevents frustration and helps maintain motivation. If I set a goal that feels too ambitious, I often end up feeling overwhelmed.
I agree. Breaking down larger goals into smaller, manageable tasks is key. For example, if I want to read a novel in English, I'll set a goal of reading a chapter a day. It feels less daunting and gives me a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. Plus, I find that tracking progress helps keep me accountable. I use a journal to note what I've learned each week. It's satisfying to look back and see how much I've achieved over time.
That's a great strategy. Reflecting on progress can be really motivating. It also allows us to adjust our goals if needed, ensuring that we continue moving forward on our learning journey.
Engaging with others in English is another excellent way to enhance our language skills. What do you think, Daniel?
Absolutely. I find that conversations with friends or language partners can really boost my confidence. Talking about everyday topics allows me to practice in a relaxed setting.
Right. Plus, discussing various subjects with others exposes us to different vocabulary and expressions. Sometimes I learn a new phrase just from casual conversations.
Exactly. I remember chatting with a friend about travel plans, and they used a phrase I had never heard before. It's amazing how informal conversations can introduce us to real-life language use.
Totally, online platforms and language exchange apps can be helpful for connecting with people. I often use them to practice speaking and even get feedback on my pronunciation.
That's a smart idea. Also, attending local language meetups or workshops can create opportunities for face-to-face interactions. These environments often foster friendly conversations where everyone is there to learn.
Another fantastic way to practice English daily is by utilizing online resources. What tools do you use, Daniel?
I really like using language learning apps. They have a variety of exercises, from vocabulary to grammar, and I can practice whenever I have a few spare minutes. It makes learning feel less like a chore.
That's a great strategy. I enjoy watching YouTube channels dedicated to English learning. The visual and auditory elements help reinforce what I learn, and I can see the words being used in context.
Absolutely. Plus, many channels offer interactive content where you can pause and repeat phrases. This helps with pronunciation and listening skills. I often mimic the speakers to improve my accent.
Exactly, podcasts are another excellent resource. They're perfect for improving listening skills, and you can listen while doing chores or commuting. It's a great way to immerse yourself in the language.
Definitely. I also recommend using social media to follow accounts that post in English. This keeps me engaged with the language daily, and I can learn new expressions in a fun way.
Setting specific language goals is crucial for effective practice. I often set daily, weekly, or even monthly objectives to keep myself motivated. For example, I might aim to learn 5 new vocabulary words each week. How about you, Daniel?
I completely agree. Having clear goals makes a significant difference. Personally, I try to challenge myself by focusing on different aspects of the language each month. One month, I might concentrate on improving my listening skills by watching a certain number of English films or shows, while the next month I focus on writing short essays or diary entries. This structured approach keeps my learning engaging and prevents me from feeling overwhelmed.
That's a great method. I also believe tracking your progress is essential. I keep a journal of the new words I learn and review them regularly. This not only helps reinforce my memory, but also gives me a sense of accomplishment as I see how much I've learned over time.
Exactly, celebrating those small victories can really boost our confidence. For instance, when I finish a book or successfully hold a conversation in English without relying too much on my native language, I feel proud. These milestones motivate me to keep going and push my limits even further.
And don't forget to adjust your goals as you progress. Sometimes, what works at the beginning may not be effective later on. Regularly reflecting on what you want to achieve and how far you've come can help you tailor your learning experience to meet your needs better.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right balance. If something feels too challenging, it's okay to scale back a bit. The key is to maintain a steady pace that keeps you engaged without feeling discouraged.
Finding a language partner can be one of the most beneficial strategies for practicing English daily. Having someone to converse with allows you to practice speaking and listening in a real-life context. I often recommend joining language exchange groups or online platforms where you can connect with native speakers. It's a fantastic way to not only improve your language skills, but also to learn about different cultures. Daniel, do you have any tips for finding a good language partner?
Definitely, I've found that using language exchange apps can be incredibly helpful. You can search for partners based on the languages they speak and what languages they want to learn. When I started using one, I was paired with someone who was eager to learn my native language while helping me improve my English. We scheduled regular video calls, which really pushed me to speak more naturally and confidently. Plus, it's an excellent way to make new friends from around the world.
That sounds awesome, and it's so important to establish a comfortable environment with your partner. I always make sure to communicate openly about our goals for the conversation. For instance, if I'm struggling with pronunciation or grammar, I let them know so they can provide constructive feedback. This way, both partners benefit from the exchange, and it creates a supportive learning atmosphere.
Absolutely. Having that clarity helps keep the sessions productive. Another thing I've noticed is that it's beneficial to switch between casual conversations and structured practice. Sometimes we spend time just chatting about our day, while other times we might focus on specific topics like discussing current events or practicing interview questions. This mix keeps our conversations fresh and engaging, allowing us to learn more effectively.
Exactly. I also find that incorporating fun activities, like watching movies or reading articles together, enhances the learning experience. After watching a film, we often discuss the plot and characters, which gives us a chance to practice vocabulary and expressions in context. It feels less like studying and more like sharing an enjoyable experience.
That's a fantastic idea. Using shared interests as a foundation for practice makes learning feel more natural. Whether it's discussing a book, sharing travel experiences, or even cooking recipes together, these interactions can lead to meaningful conversations while enhancing our language skills. The key is to make it enjoyable, so we look forward to our practice sessions.
Setting clear goals is vital for effective language learning. It gives you a roadmap and keeps you motivated. I always encourage learners to think about what they want to achieve with their English skills. For example, do you want to hold a conversation, pass a test, or perhaps get a job in an English-speaking environment? Daniel, how do you approach goal setting in your learning?
I completely agree. When I started learning English, I set specific goals like reading a certain number of books each month or practicing speaking for at least 30 minutes every day. I even broke it down into smaller milestones, like mastering specific vocabulary related to my field of work. This helped me track my progress and kept me motivated. Plus, reaching those small milestones feels rewarding and encourages me to keep going.
That's such a great strategy. I often recommend using the SMART criteria for setting goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For example, instead of saying, "I want to speak better English," you could say, "I want to have a 10-minute conversation in English about my hobbies every week." This way, you can measure your progress and adjust your approach if needed.
Exactly. It's about making those goals tangible. Another thing that works for me is sharing my goals with others. Whether it's a language partner or a group of friends, when you tell someone about your goals, you feel more accountable to follow through. Plus, they can offer support or join you in achieving those goals, which makes the process more enjoyable.
Absolutely, having a support system can really boost your motivation. And don't forget to celebrate your achievements, no matter how small they are. Recognizing your progress reinforces your learning and keeps you excited about your journey. I like to reward myself with something special whenever I hit a significant milestone in my English practice.
Great point. Acknowledging your hard work is essential. I sometimes treat myself to a nice meal or a new book once I reach a goal. It creates a positive association with your learning journey, making you more likely to stick with it. So, listeners, if you haven't set your language learning goals yet, now is the time to start. Think about what you want to achieve and how you can measure your progress.
Thank you for joining us today as we explored the value of lifelong learning in mastering English. We hope you found our tips helpful and feel inspired to continue your language journey.
Remember, setting goals and recognizing your progress can significantly enhance your learning experience. Don't forget to practice every day and celebrate your achievements along the way.
We appreciate you listening and encourage you to apply what you've learned today. Keep practicing, and soon you'll see great improvements in your English skills.
Join us next time for another exciting topic that will help you grow as an English learner. Until then, happy learning.